Speaking of layoffs, we did get this report this morning that Roku is now planning to lay off roughly 200 workers, just the latest tech company here in this wave of cuts that we have seen. So what's different now versus the last wave between now versus the last wave of corporate cutback? Let's bring in Yahoo Finance's Allie Garfinkle. And Allie, when you look at the numbers, you see 100,000 at Amazon, thousands at Meta. I mean, these are really big numbers. But to your point, we have seen some of these cycles before. How do they compare?
Yeah, Kiko, we absolutely have seen cycles like this before. And I don't want to take away from how seismic and important this is, but I want to point out that there is some precedent. So, first things first, in 2015, 2014, we saw a huge wave of tech layoffs. We might pull up a graphic here pretty soon, but the gist of it is those numbers were also looking pretty big. We're talking 18,000 out of Microsoft, 10,000 out of Dell, 12K out of Intel, right? Those 336 jobs out of Twitter were at 8% of the workforce at the time. So we have seen big layoffs in tech before. It has happened. Actually, historically, one of the largest layoffs in American corporate history was at IBM in 1993. They laid off 60,000 people at Kiko. So one of the things that I think is important to remember is we do have some precedent for giant layoffs in tech. However, just because this compares to something else we've seen before doesn't mean it's not a sea change, right? In 2015, 2014, we definitely got the sense that it was, old guard right sizing. Think about some of those names we saw: Dell, IBM, HP, right? But here, what we're seeing is, pandemic growth stories that were cut off at the knees. We just heard Dan talk about Amazon, and today we have both Cisco and Roku announcing that they are going to be doing layoffs as well. So this is different, but I did want to point out that there is a lot that we've seen before too.
And you talk about the shift that we've seen in past cycles where, if you see the cuts in some of the big names that have grown so significantly, it is about increasing or injecting a little more competition too. What are you hearing from some of your sources about how that's likely to shake down? I mean, to that point, we got the information yesterday reporting that TikTok is looking to hire a lot of these workers that have been cut by the big tech firms.
Yeah, right. There's the workforce is really shifting around, Akiko. A lot of the employment, we'll see how the employment data from tech bears out this cycle. But last month, a lot of the unemployment numbers in tech were still looking really good. We're seeing workers really move around. There's actually some data out there that says it's actually a good time to hire engineers, for example, because a lot of them have been let go. So I think, I spoke to historian Margaret O'Mara about this. She's a Silicon Valley historian. She has a book out, and the thing that she sort of said was, there's going to be a lot of pain here. We're going to see it. But on the other side, we could see a tech that is in some ways really different, a tech that's more mature, perhaps, and a tech that where just maybe there's a little bit more breathing room for competition. Bottom line here, Kiko, from my perspective, is that tech may not be the growth industry it once was on the other side of this, but we'll have to wait and see. In a couple years, I could be sitting here again, pointing out the data from 2022 saying, we've seen this before. But for now, what I would say is layoffs probably aren't over from what I've heard from sources, and that this is a seismic change for Silicon Valley. It's just not unprecedented.
Yeah, it was first some of these startups. Now it's trickled over into the big tech names, and to your point, more of a legacy company like Cisco. So unfortunately, a sign of more pain to come. Allie, thanks so much for that.